Super Smash Bros. Melee. When it comes to sequels in the realm of video games, it's hard to stumble across a successor boasting such an impressive leap in quality compared to Melee. Smash 64 by many regards is a bona fide classic in its own right, yet its legacy is moderately smirched by just how awesome Melee is. A game that defies decades of sequels trying to improve on its merits. A fancy subtitle, an orchestrated soundtrack, vastly improved graphics, sharper physics, and a buttload of new-ish characters, stages, items, and most topically important here, modes. Melee added so much to do that in retrospect it is simply absurd. Now, it'd be easy to sit here and lump all this new stuff together and gargle out some kind of nostalgic retrospective that I'm sure you've seen before. But that wouldn't do justice to a piece of content Melee introduced that seemed to always pique my interest as a wee lad and even now. Perhaps you could call it my favorite mode in Smash. Bros history. And no, I'm not talking about the lottery or single button mode. Instead, I'll be yammering on about the event matches.
You're watching Mad Trash Modes.
Rather than a long string of hurdles you'd see in a more traditional mode, event matches are singular objectives that you have to tackle one at a time, each distinguished by their own title, which plays into the contents of the following specialized match. A golden rule of thumb is to mostly expect a certain spin that makes the event more spicy and varied. For example, it can start off fairly simple with the first event, Trouble King, being a two-stock duel against Bowser as Mario on Battlefield. Although things can quickly get a bit kooky, such as with Bombfest, an explosive match where your opponents Link and Samus favor their bomb-related moves, alongside items of the bomb varieties such as bombs, motion sensors, and Pokeballs that only spawn Voltorb, all of which is fought on Peach's castle where the massive Bonsai Bill stage hazard is awaiting its eventual explosion. Did I mention bombs? Even that classic Melee janky wankiness resides in such events as the Trophy Tussles, a series of regular free-for-all battles set atop of select trophies. I have to admit, this is both absurdly fascinating and awkward to be fighting on top of a Goomba's bald head. I don't know, short bursts of tailor-made challenges scratch that certain part of my back that is linked to the I like this a lot set of neurons in my brain. But don't worry, this video won't entirely be rooted in my subjective opinions. Instead, it'll be crafted from my subjective facts. To Event Match's credit, I do genuinely believe on the surface it has the prospects of being one of Smash's premier single-player modes, standing above the rest through incorporating a multitude of reasons I'm bound to shed light on. First of which being the care given to the sometimes overlooked soul of the franchise. So much of the fascination oozing from Smash as a series comes from how imaginative the individual player can be, crafting their own wacky scenarios given the tools present. Take a look at Ness throwing a Pokeball at Samus and Donkey Kong on the Great Fox flying through Sector Z, and that's only from the first game. Show this to a caveman from the year 37 BC and he would go absolutely bananas. The point is, you can go balls to the wall with randomness or try to come up with believable circumstances. The choice on what to create is totally in your control, almost as if Smash is just some kind of toy box, a mindless mishmash of characters we fancy. The developers, on the other hand, had a chance to take full grasp onto these colliding worlds and curate some fun, informative, and overall creative single-player content with respect to the source material that shared the same toy box spirits. And to put plainly, looking into Melee's other one-player modes, my back isn't quite getting scratched in the same way. Classic mode is comprised of a series of stages that always ends up feeling like a gauntlet of nonsensical battles until you reach the end. A fine set of challenges to get your feet wet with playing a few rounds of Smash, albeit ultimately uninspired with randomly assorted assets. Adventure mode is perhaps the complete opposite to a fault. Every set of stages are reserved exclusively to a slice of Nintendo's catalog of series. Mario, Donkey Kong, Zelda, Metroid, so on and so forth. It's a splendid peek into the worlds we love, especially those that feature fully thought out platforming segments, but we are trapped inside each area in solitude one at a time. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy both of these modes a lot, and they went on to evolve in their own rights in the later Smash entries, for better and worse. Yet, in my eyes, the structure for event matches is the perfect recipe to let the devs put on their creative caps and get to cooking, thinking of bizarre scenarios that, at times, are chocked full of those juicy, deep-cut references we all know and love. Spotlighting the valuable assets Smash brings to the table while often putting real meaning into the otherwise random battles. There's some clear easy pickings like with 7 Years, a versus match between the two melee Links, one young and the other just Link. Of course, this is representing the amount of time he traveled across time in Ocarina of Time. That's a lot of time, which is probably why they gave us 3 whole daggone stocks to waste time. Super Mario Bros. 2. Did somebody mention the greatest game of all time? Everyone from this star-studded cast has shown up ready to fight, and they even have home field advantage. Although, I'm not really sure if you can count Toad, he just kinda projectile vomits on you all nasty-like. Link's adventure is nothing short of purified dankness with a near replica of the event's namesake, Zelda 2 Link's Adventure's ending battle against Dark Link in the very same area that the temple stage was inspired by. Seconds, anyone? Is quite the cheeky play on words since you only have 7 freaking seconds to KO a highly damaged Captain Falcon. This may seem like an arbitrary time limit for the sake of the event's challenge, but those true die-hard F-Zero fans, all 5 of you, will be quick to recall that Falcon's famous ride, the Blue Falcon, sports the number 7. That's the real beauty about these references. Not every single one will stick out like a sore thumb and need some deep trivia wiki page knowledge to understand. Mewtwo Strikes is a callback to part of the first Pokemon film, Mewtwo Strikes Back, where he takes control of Nurse Joy through mind powers and forces her to hype up his grand entrance. This is reflected in the event by starting the match against a darkened and ominous Zelda who's being controlled by Mewtwo. I said being controlled by Mewtwo. Ah, there he is. Gargantuans is a straight-up homage to kaiju films with Bowser repping the likes of Godzilla and Donkey Kong ironically taking the mantle of King Kong as they battle atop of giant buildings in Forside. The cherry on top are the tiny Mario and Peach CPUs that get KO'd mere seconds into the match. Sad, yet hilarious. Super Mario 128, as the title may suggest, throws you against an army of dozens of little Marios, the sum of which is a rather deep cut to one of the GameCube's early tech demos, Super Mario 128. While development for this once upon a time Mario 64 sequel never got that far, its spirit will always live on in this single event. And other games like Pikmin and Mario Galaxy, but never mind those. Don't you worry if this is the first you're hearing about some of these tidbits, as even Nintendo's biggest warriors, hashtag RPGs except Paper Mario are stinky, are bound to let some references fly over their heads due to them being lost in translation. Target Acquire's title in the Japanese setting of Melee translates to Hands Off My Prey, which, if that sounds a tad bit familiar, it is one of the quips Falco throws out during his taunts. Except, English Falco stays silent, having to wait until Brawl to hear that line firsthand. Hence is why the event's title was changed, regardless of how much cooler it originally was. Tragic. Now, despite my rambling thus far, not every event has, nor has to be, some kind of witty reference. An alternate way to witness some love being dished out is simply seeing the fun character dynamics the cast of Smash is thrown together in. Seeing what the devs could come up with may even introduce you to some smaller details of the characters you may not have known. After all, the ability to teach is one of Smash's best aspects by far. The event Girl Power brings all of these strong, independent female females of the roster together to make waste to your so-called manly masculinity, causing you to shrink down like a little baby man. If you didn't know Samus was a girl, well, there you go. But come on, everyone and their great-grandmother knows that by now. It's far more interesting to point out how she's also a rad intergalactic bounty hunter, which would actually make it 2 among the cast from the looks of bounty hunters. Bear witness to the unlikely team-up of Samus and Falcon as they fight to claim the bounty of this poor Bowser who was probably just minding his business. Other times, the dynamic surrounding the match is merely for laughs, because I swear someone on the dev team had to be a dad after seeing Birds of Prey, where you fight the duo of Falco and Captain Falcon. Do you get it? Falcon, like the bird? Yeah. From the looks of it, you truly won't know what you're getting into until you queue up into the event itself, which honestly may be half of the fun to me. The other half, which this sentiment fully applies to as well, would be the actual gameplay. Due to the bite-sized nature of an event, there's no pressure to fully commit to a single concept or structure type, with each one having the chance to be completely different. Since you're able to bounce around so many individual objectives, the mode comes across as a sort of petri dish that lets you sample the many playable characters, stages, and even match types. These range from coin battles, surviving an ever-moving stage, being a bodyguard for your ally, keeping a specific object safe from enemies, horde fights, or even matches where you solely rely on items to win. More specifically, Pokemon Battle, where you do indeed have a Pokemon battle. Only the pocket monsters spawned from the Pokeballs can do damage to you or your opponents. It goes without saying that things can get rather crazy rather fast. Alright, these all sound hecka fun and whatnot, but with a whopping 51 total events, there is valid concern for the overall goodness of the mode. I do think there is a standard of quality most events measure up to, give or take. However, a handful teeter the line of brilliant excellence featuring clever scenarios you wouldn't find elsewhere across the game, and straight up uninspired, fairly aimless feeling, and all-around near filler-esque targets you gotta slog through. Some of my favorites include Hide and Seek, where it's not only a matter of beating up on some poor Zelda bots, as your fruit of labor can wield null if you finish the deed against the princess in particular. You'll have to wait for them to transform into Sheik to receive credit for the KO. Of course, they do so somewhat haphazardly, so you'll either have to 1. Tack on just the right amount of damage onto her when she's Zelda for a quick knockout as Sheik, or 2. Completely lock her down as soon as she turns into Sheik, finishing the job in 1 or 2 exchanges. Icebreaker utilizes the very dynamic of the ice climbers to its advantage, making this objective tricky, albeit rewarding. You're only allowed to KO Nana, in this case the secondary climber. Splitting them up and attacking her while not trying to relay the same damage onto Popo isn't the most straightforward thing to do. But the moment you get them nice and separated is your go-ahead to throw everything you got and destroy Nana with all your might. Legendary Pokemon is another mad dash for those dang Pokeballs, except here, each one will be guaranteed to spawn an overpowered legendary that ravages the stage. The best one of all? Why? Wobbuffet, of course. Flipping to the other side of that coin, some of the stanky trash ones include Hot Date on Brinstar, which had me certain that there was some sort of meaning behind these specific percents you and Samus start your stocks out at, but apparently nope, it's completely random, up smash her 3 times and call it a day. The Yoshi herd. Yep, that's indeed a lot of Yoshis. Not even the last giant one saves this from the depths of mediocrity. Speaking of giants, Dino Wranglin is more so janky than bad. Whoever thought sticking a humongous Yoshi on one of the smallest stages with bottom blast zones to boot was a good idea must have been out of their right mind. The event can end in a mere couple of seconds or drag out to well beyond triple digits. Although, the absolute worst event, hands down, has to go to Fire Emblem Pride. What an absolute nothing burger we have on our hands. A total drag of a 3-stock match against both Marth and Roy on Temple of all stages. This just served as a reminder that Fire Emblem is one of the only series represented in Melee to not get their own stage. Even Game & Watch can say he has one. At the very least, their theme is playing as the background music, and yeah, bump that shiz all the way up because it is indeed jamming. main issue with these not-so-great events mainly comes from their objectives being on the boring or stale side of things. But there's some that go beyond this and are guilty of outright reusing content ideas from other parts of Melee single player. You could pose the age-old question, what came first, the chicken or the egg, in favor of these events, yet I'll always give it to the non-event mode stuff, since there's nothing forcing them to add the stolen ideas as events in the first place outside of a crunchy 5-week development time. Game & Watch Forever is just the final match from All-Star mode where you fight a team of 25 Game & Watches. Puffballs Unite is a replica of the second act of the Green stage from Adventure mode, facing off against another team of Kirby's hosting a variety of copy abilities. And oh golly, don't even get me started on the 5 All-Star matches you'll come across. I've always viewed these as baby-fied versions of the previously mentioned unlockable mode All-Star, except instead of fighting the entire cast in a grueling gauntlet, you face off against a measly 5 at a time. That is lame with a capital L, I do have to say. Now, not every event that steals from other places is necessarily bad. In fact, one of the most epic events that always gets my blood boiled is the Lethal Marathon, a race down the exact same track that was featured in the F-Zero Grand Prix from Adventure mode. However, in the event, the game speed is cranked up to an 11, running at double, making Falcon, an already unruly beast of a character, near uncontrollable, all while avoiding the other racers in their vehicles that, if hit by just once, will send you flying off screen in a heartbeat. You think he's okay? Probably not, right? At the end of the list, going out with a bang, we have the Final Destination match. What a better fitting scenario than the final confrontation against Master and Crazy Hand. Yeah, it's copied over from Classic Mode's final boss, except Crazy Hand is here from the start versus coming in at halftime. Honestly, I don't care. It's a fun and eventful challenge to bookend our journey. Or is it? Well, would you look at that? The 3 biggest Nintendo villains from 2001. Bowser, Ganondorf, and Mewtwo all joining forces. I know if you've shared even a fraction of the same childhood experience as I, you should know this was an utter demon to beat. But after replaying it, I gotta be honest, it was kind of a letdown. Don't get me wrong, the setup is pretty extravagant on paper. It's just that the difficulty stems from more of an annoyance with the constant hitboxes being thrown out by the trio, rather than challenging combat from their AI, which, by the way, is a joke. To get what I mean, take out Giga Bowser first, and then sit back and watch as Mewtwo and Ganon slowly walk around like some buffoons grabbing random items. Embarrassing. All things considered, is event matches the best single-player mode in Melee? Honestly, I don't know. It's tough to say since there's so many varying degrees of quality and types of events and all that jazz. One second, I may be having a blast, and the next, it kinda sucks. So it's hard to pinpoint a single feeling compared to the other modes like Classic, Adventure, or Break the Targets. Yet, if I had to sum it all up in a single word, it would be, pretty good. Like I said in the beginning, it's just a piece of content that I always gravitated towards, hence is why I chose to title the video, My Favorite, and not The Best. So none of you can say I'm wrong in the comments. And if I'm not wrong, then that means I'm right. So I guess event matches is objectively the best mode ever made. Hashtag got 'em. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the other Smash titles after Melee also have event modes, or something similar to it. I probably should talk about it. I mean, I already have it all scripted out and voice acted, but looks like it's a little too late. Whatever, I'll be back one day. Maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna go eat a corn dog.